You know, I really do keep shooting myself in the foot by wearing these really bright t-shirts. So if there's any glare, ignore it. I'm gonna try and fix it, but you're gonna have to bear with me here. Hi everyone, I'm Chris. Welcome to whatever the hell this is. I have no idea either. But today I'm doing my June reading wrap-up, which is basically when I tell you every single book I've read in the month of June. And turns out, I had exams this month, and I still read more books than I normally read in a month. I read 10 books this month. However, I will chalk that down to I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I might have had exams, I might have had to revise a lot, but if I read an audiobook, I can get that shit done quick because I listen to audiobooks on 3 times speed. I don't mess around with audiobooks. I won't lie, some of these books it feels like I read an entire lifetime ago. For example, the first book that I finished in June was Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan. This is book 2 in the Hoop series, and we're following 2 sports agents who met in college, but then something happened between them which kind of broke them apart, and then because they're both in the same like field of work, which is sports management, they like sometimes cross paths with each other multiple times, and it's basically a romance between these 2. I literally won't lie to you, I hated this book. Hate is a strong word. I gave this book 3 stars, which means that it was average and it didn't spark anything out of me, which is true because I can appreciate that the book was written pretty well. However, it also might chalk up to the fact that this was coming after Longshot, which is one of my favourite books of all time, and it was just a very much a disappointment that hit me harder because it came after Longshot. I was like, how, Kennedy Ryan, have you written this absolute masterpiece and then you follow it up with Blockshot? Like, so I gave this book 3 stars. It's honestly fine. I know so many people who actually prefer this book to Longshot. I'm not one of those people, and you're gonna have to accept me for who I am. I will say I started this book in April and finished it in June because I like couldn't get into it enough. I ended up picking up the audiobook, so I was like, I need to get this off my TBR. The next book is literally the only paperback that I read. I reread The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I already mentioned this in my last video, the only books I ever gave 5 stars. I reread it literally to tab it and annotate it. Thank God I did, because I absolutely fell in love with this book yet again. Honestly, is it better the second time? Maybe. I literally fell head over heels for this book. I love it. It's so good. I don't feel the need to explain it because I'm sure everyone already knows what it's about, but yeah, I reread this really close to the beginning of the month. I reread this June 2nd. Oh my god, I love this book so much. It is so good. After that, I went into 2 books that are part of Cora Riley's Maffiaverse of Madness. At least that's what I call it, because there are so many books in these like 2 series, and then there's also some standalones in between, whatever. But I read Twisted Bonds and Bound by the Past. So Twisted Bonds is part of the Camorra Chronicles. It is book 4. We're following Nino and Kiara, and it is actually their 2nd book. Their first book was Twisted Emotions. So we've already got a relationship between them, and this book was a lot more plot focused. But it shows events of Twisted Pride, which was book 3, aka the book that came just before this book. It showed their relationship throughout those events. So it's a lot of things like that in Cora Riley's Mafia books, even though they're from different perspectives. It'll like quickly glance over events that happened in the books, and that's why you have like a set reading order, I guess. I enjoyed this book. I loved Nino and Kiara. They're actually my favourite couple so far. Bear in mind, I've only read 4 books in the Camorra Chronicles, and 2 of them follow the same person, Nino and Kiara, or the same couple, but I love them. I love them in Twisted Emotions. I love them in this book too. Nino is supposedly, in like the Twisted Emotions, he's supposedly this guy who has absolutely no emotions, he can't love. Then he obviously meets Kiara and changes things for him. Oh my god, I love it so much. And then we went into Bound by the Past, which is book 7. Book 7? Wow, this is book 7 in the Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles. I hated this book. I gave this book 2 stars. This follows Dante and Valentina. I didn't like Bound by Duty, which is their first book. I didn't like this one either. I just don't like Dante. He's so annoying. This book, again, you can't really say what it's about because you need to have read Bound by Duty beforehand. But basically, Dante has like this whole past life before he met Valentina. He's still like coming to terms with it and shit like that. But it also replays the events of Bound by Love, because Dante's like heavily involved in Bound by Love. So you see that from his perspective as well. And I love Bound by Love. Oh, I love that book. But I did not like this one. Sorry about it. The next book that I read was My Dark Vanessa, Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is not a romance. This is actually a literary fiction book. I don't read a lot of literary fiction because I call it too techie. Too techie for me. I mainly read because I like reading romance. I like reading, like watching 2 people fall in love. It's my thing. This book is 100% not that. I picked it up because I did like the synopsis. We are following this girl right at the beginning. She's like on Facebook, and she finds this post from this other girl who is basically coming out to tell her story about how she was basically groomed by her English teacher when she was 15. This girl who is on Facebook seeing this post had the exact same grooming relationship with the exact same teacher when she was 15, but she doesn't think that the teacher was in the wrong, and she believes that this teacher is like her first true love. So we're basically shifting shifting from past and present perspective, seeing how this relationship between this teacher formed, and you see how that affects her in the present, and how everyone's kind of gunning for this teacher, but she, like, in her own mind, she's like, but he didn't do anything wrong, like, we both wanted this, it was consensual, whatever. One thing that I absolutely loved about this book is the way it's written, especially in the past, when you see the really gradual change from it being a teacher, being an actual, like, teacher-student relationship, to it being inappropriate, but also see the little manipulation techniques that this teacher is doing, how he's making it seem like it's her ideas. It was so, like, uncomfortable to read, and I was like, oh my god, like, he's literally manipulating you right now. I, like, very much questioned this in the book. I was like, what the fuck? The teacher gives the student Lolita to read. Like, very fitting. Anyways, moving on. After that, I read a series. I knew it was going to be bad, and it was bad, but then I got so invested in this world, in this universe, I actually ended up loving it, and that was the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. I'm sure we all know what this series is about. It's 3 books following the exact same couple, Christian Grey and Anastasia Steele. I'm going to talk about each book individually, like, briefly. I read the books, and after I read each book, I watched the corresponding movie, which was so much fun. I loved doing that because I got to, like, compare and contrast what happened in the books, what happened in the movies, and things that were missed out or things that were done better in either of the, like, 2 formats. So starting off with 50 Shades of Grey, this book was terrible. I gave this book 2 stars. I thought this book was so bad. We're following this girl called Anastasia who fills in for a friend to interview this billionaire CEO guy called Christian Grey, and somehow they supposedly have some chemistry between them. I don't see it, but the book's telling me that there's chemistry. Also, in this book, Anastasia bites her lip about 2,000 times. I was, like, worried that she didn't have any more lips the amount of time she was biting them. Anyway, we interview, they have this chemistry, and they bump into each other. He's obsessed with her, takes her back to his house, and we basically find out that he likes to be dominant in the bedroom. He also has a red room of pain. We're not going to talk about that one though. Yeah, I thought this book was terrible. I did not believe the relationship. I thought it was cringy. I thought it was not believable, and I thought it was kind of abusive. I feel like there's a lot of manipulation on Christian's end in this relationship, so I was like, I have 2 more books of this relationship that I, number 1, don't believe, and number 2, think is kind of emotionally abusive in terms of manipulation. It's not looking good, Brev. And then I read 50 Shades Darker, and this book was honestly just as bad. 2 stars once again. However, I will say I enjoyed this one more. Christian is, like, so in love with Anastasia that he's willing to, like, form a compromise between her of, like, he'll stop being so dominant and she can, like, meet him in the middle to have this relationship that they can, like, mutually benefit off of, as in, like, they both like each other, but they also both have qualities that the others don't like, and they're gonna try get rid of that so that they can have a relationship. The book was bad. However, I will say the movie was incredible. I loved it. The first 50 Shades movie was not that good. The second one was, oh my god. It was like, I don't know how it was so much better, but it was, and I loved it. Moving on to 50 Shades Freed, this book was good. I don't know if I was just a bit brainwashed because I read the first 2 and I was forced to believe that this couple was a thing, and that I was forced to, like, follow this couple for 3 books, but I thought this book was really good. I believed the relationship for the first time ever. I thought the actual storyline of this book was so much fun. It's obviously very, like, melodramatic, but you kind of have to just live with that. I loved it. Really close to the end of it, when she, like, goes to the bank, loved that storyline so much. Oh my god, yeah. It wasn't as good in the movie, I won't lie, because I, like, have a physical attachment to, like, the last quarter of this book. So when I watched the movie and I saw how they, like, adapted that part of the book, I was like, you could have done this better, but they didn't. The movie is incredible, don't get me wrong, but the book was so good. I gave this 3 stars. Like, I'm talking about this as if I gave it 5 stars. No, I gave it 3 because I have to ground myself in reality, and that is, this is 50 Shades Freed, and in a couple months' time, you're gonna wish you gave it 3 stars. So I gave it 3 stars now. I was contemplating giving it 4 stars though. After that, I read Irresponsible Puck Boy by Ian Finley and Saxon James. If you watched my last video where I talked about every book I gave 5 stars, I mentioned the first book in this series, and I was like, oh, I should read the second book, see if it lives up to the expectations. It did, and it didn't. It did because I loved it. It didn't because it was not 5 stars, it was 4 stars. But oh my god, I think this author duo, I need to read more books by them because I am obsessed with these two's writing. This book is an MM romance, friends to lovers, and it has a trope in it that I don't want to tell you because it's not in the blurb. We're following these 2 best friends called Trip and Dex. Trip is openly gay and Dex is straight. I say that because it's an MM romance, so is he really straight? They are best friends. They are super duper close to the point where like they like are like so comfortable with each other, and it, like Dex and his girlfriend have one of their like bajillion fights a week that they have, and so he like talks to Trip about it, and he's talking about how his girlfriend wants him to get married and all that, and he thinks he's not ready for marriage, he's scared of marriage and shit like that. Dex and his girlfriend end up breaking up over this, and Dex is so like alone because he's like always been in a relationship or something like that. So Trip is like, you can like stay with me for as long as you need to feel better about yourself. They obviously are on the same ice hockey team. I love a good sports romance. Okay, now we are on to our final book. This is technically a series, but it's a series of 7 novellas, so it's basically one book. And I read The Game. It is by L.P. Lovell and Stevie J. Cole. I was obsessed with this. I gave it 4 stars. This is a dark romance. It's also like very suspenseful. I wasn't expecting to be as hooked as I was. Let me just tell you what it's about and then we'll get into my feelings on it. We're following this girl who is like about to be homeless, so she's been applying to like 20 million different jobs. She gets a letter back saying that she has an interview for one of these jobs, and she meets the owner of some company. She gets a call back from this guy and he's like, meet me on this rooftop. We go to this rooftop and it's this guy and this other guy. They're telling her if she basically submits to these 2 guys for 7 days and successfully completes these like 7 games, she will win $1 million. I don't want to spoil, but it's one of those like games where you like question your morals. It's that kind of vibe. I was like playing along in my head. I was like, what would I do in this situation? That is it. Those are the 10 books that I've read in the month of June. Come back next month for my July reading wrap up. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. I mean, if you didn't, you could also leave a like. If you want, you can subscribe so that you can see other videos by me in the future. I do want to make more book videos, but with that, I am leaving now. So thanks. Goodbye.